Muy buenos días, chicos. Estos apuntes están en paquete 14. So packet page 14, and these are actually very, very brief notes. Son las 5:30 de la mañana y yo escribo y hablo con ustedes y después yo como el desayuno. These are called stem changing verbs, but we also do call them boot verbs. And you'll be pleasantly surprised to know that you already know one of these, and this is the reason that this verb acts the way that it acts. In Spanish, some verbs have a stem change in the present tense, or they have a change in spelling. Stem change just means change in spelling. The stem is the part of the verb left after you take off the AR, ER, or IR. So for example, in the verb pensar, it's an AR verb because it ends in AR. You drop the AR. You're going to have a change in the way that it's spelled in the pen, P-E-N-S. Stem changing verbs have regular AR, ER, and IR present tense endings. So os, a, amos, aisan, os, e, hemos, es, in, os, e, imos, is, in. Remember, you have to have those memorized. Those you have to know they're the basis for all of what we're going to be doing the rest of this year. For E to IE stem changing verbs, the letter E in the stem changes to an IE, and we'll go over some examples in that, but this is the one that you already know, and it changes in all forms except nosotros and vosotros. Now the verb that we already know that does this is the verb tener. The yo form is special, so it doesn't follow that. But when you conjugate it, tener, there's a change right here. It's an E to IE boot verb. We call it a boot verb because it changes, and when you make that change, it kind of looks like a boot. So remember, we would talk about that the to form is tienes, and then él, usted tiene. Ellos, ellas, ustedes tienen, but then nosotros is tenemos. This is why, because tener is a boot verb. Verbs we have already learned, and stem changes from E to IE, so these are verbs that we already know in this unit. Cerrar is to close, and then the E right here is going to change to IE. Entender is to understand. Pensar is to think. Empezar is to start or to begin something, and preferir is to prefer. And if you take a look at all of these vowels, it's the vowel right before the ending. That's the one that's going to change. So that same information in stem changing verbs, it's the next to last syllable that changes. So it's the vowel right before the ending. It's right before the thing that you drop. One of these verbs, very specifically, querer, means to want or to love. And it's a stem changing verb from E to IE. And remember, instead of saying stem changer, we can say boot verb. And it's a boot verb because when you follow the rule and you change it from E to IE, it's only going to change in these forms, and it's not going to change in nosotros and vosotros. So normally when we'd conjugate it, we'd drop the ER and we'd be left with the stem QUER. But now what we're saying is that that E right there is going to change to IE. And then it's going to have IE in all of the forms except nosotros and vosotros. And then we're going to add our endings. It's an ER verb, so ER verbs are o, es, e, hemos, es, en. So the yo form, we're going to add the o, quiero, tú quieres, él, usted quiere. I say it's easiest to just go over here and add the en because you're still inside the boot. Nosotros, don't add the IE. Queremos. It also changes the pronunciation. Vosotros queréis. Make sure you add the accent on the E. One thing to keep in mind is that when one verb directly follows another, the first verb is conjugated, and the second stays in its infinitive form. For example, yo quiero una manzana. I want an apple. Or we could say, yo quiero comer una manzana. Quiero is our first verb, which is conjugated, and comer is our second verb. It changes the meaning slightly and makes you sound a little bit different when you speak, so it gives you a wider vocabulary. I want to eat an apple. Using the verbs that we wrote down up at the top and the rule of stem changers, let's practice 1 through 6. I want to use the computer. Number 2, want is the verb querer. Number 2, she prefers to wear boots. Prefer is preferir. They close the door. To close is cerrar. Número 4, we start class. To start is empezar. Understand is entender. And to think is pensar. So let's start with number 6. You think. Remember, it's going to change from E to IE. And then you got to put it in the U form. Piensas. The 2 is optional. Tú piensas. Entender. You're going to drop the ER. The E right before the ending is going to change. It's going to change from E to IE. I understand. Good, we'll add the O. The yo is optional. Yo entiendo. Looks like I spelled empezar wrong. The E right before the ending is going to change, except we're in the nosotros. Nosotros empezamos. Good. And we're going to practice these all individually, but this is just how they work all together. Número 3, they close, cerrar. This is the E right before the ending. They close. The ellos is optional. La puerta. Muy bien. Número 1 and 2 are following this rule that's up here, when one verb directly follows another. She prefers to wear. This E right before the ending is going to change. Ella. Good. It's an IR, so add an E. To wear is our second verb. Ella prefiere llevar, and then you add the vocab word for shorts. Los pantalones cortos. If you choose to do number 1, I'll give you extra credit. Otherwise, we'll practice mañana. Adiós.